Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Mitch and Paulie will be back on Monday, enjoying a well-deserved vacation before the grind of football season officially begins. Stormy, Buonantony, and Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We will be back starting Monday in our usual spot from 12 to 2 Eastern on Money Moves. And something that we had been planning for a while on Money Moves was to do our reveal of our personal college football top 25. We've been revealing 2 teams per day throughout the course of this week. We are up to 17 and 16 today. If you missed any of the previous rankings, of course, you can download Follow the Money wherever you get your podcasts. Also, the VSiN Best Bets podcast feed will have all of this housed. Over the last 2 days, we had Baylor come in at 20, the Arizona State Sun Devils at 19, SMU at 18, and now today, number 17, we're going with Illinois here. And this is a team that I know a handful of people have been very high on. Probably the biggest name of which in the college football world is Joel Klatt of Fox Sports, who on the Joel Klatt Show podcast a couple weeks ago had this to say about Brett Bielema's squad.
This year's Indiana is Illinois, a team that their schedule is perfect, their roster is perfect, there is experience in the right places, and there is a guy at the helm. This case, Brett Bielema, knows exactly what he's doing. So I like Illinois as my number 1 team to make their very first playoff appearance. They've got the roster, they've got the schedule, all things aligned for Illinois this year.
Very bullish, 5-1 the price for Illinois to make the college football playoff. Win total just at 7.5. It is juiced pretty heavily to the over, -160. But JVT, this is a team that won 10 games last year for the first time in Illinois since 2001. Beat South Carolina in that bowl game, and a team that is essentially all back this year.
It's hard not to like it, and I think I try not to just blindly go, man, this team's got a lot coming back. They should be pretty good. Because, you don't want to – I wrote about this for a couple of the Mountain West teams where you have teams that were really bad defensively that bring up a ton of talent back, and you're like, okay, well, what does that mean, right? You were terrible last year. But I think a lot of what you like about Illinois is something that really translates to what this is going to be. You mentioned Altmaier. Yep. He's going to be back. The fact that this offensive line looks
everybody on the front is back.
Yep, they looks pretty loaded, including J.C. Davis, left tackle. There's a bunch of guys who are pretty highly touted here that you see and you go, yeah, I totally get why this team could do it. Klatt mentioned the most, I think, important aspect of this, which is similar to your 49ers, the schedule, right? It's a schedule that is littered with opportunity. The tough road trips, at Indiana, whatever Purdue's going to be, Washington, Wisconsin, but you get to play host to Ohio State. We can chalk that even up as a loss, but there's a lot of opportunity to stack up some wins here if you're Illinois and sit there and be a rep in the Big Ten championship game potentially.
The schedule sets up so well for them. I understand why it's juiced on that over 7.5 because I can see 8 wins here with my eyes closed looking at this schedule, right? And we talk about the returning production, 16 returning starters, 9 of those on offense. We mentioned the full offensive line and your quarterback, which are 2 key cogs. They do have to replace their top 2 wide receivers, but brought in some really good talent there, at least on paper, it seems. Defense in the 3rd year under their defensive coordinator, Aaron Henry, should be really good. Entire secondary back. Best pass rusher is back. They went to the portal to get some defensive line help. And the schedule. There's just a lot of things that set up very, very nicely for Illinois this year that put them in position to be our, number 17 team in the country.
And I think, too, again, given what the schedule looks like, we'll see some of these other teams. We were debating back and forth about what exactly a team like USC is going to be. Yeah. That's going to be a somewhat challenging home game when you look at what that is. I don't know what Wisconsin's going to be when you head out on the road to take them on. But even from that regard, I wonder where the slip-off spots would be, because I do think, given what we know about this squad and looking at this schedule as a whole, I think you make the argument 7.5 over -160 is still pretty cheap. This might be a schedule that presents itself to be 8.5 instead of 7.5 shaded to the over.
I'm curious what happens at Indiana. That'll be a fun one, especially given those comments from Joel Klatt that Illinois could be the Indiana of this year. To have those two go head-to-head early on in the season, I think will be fun to see where both of those teams are at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think because here's the I think this is somewhat reminiscent, not entirely, but remember last year one of the big topics was, hey, Rutgers has a really easy schedule. They got a lot of returning production, that they will avoid all the big boys. Maybe they can make a run here and win a bunch of games and actually be somewhat of a dark horse, and it didn't really pan out. And I wonder if we're going to look back and say, all right, well, Altmaier was a little pedestrian at quarterback. They were just trying to control the line of scrimmage. The defense average last year, maybe it's just going to be continuing to do that, and we're going to be disappointed this team's just going to be 7-5. But kind of evaluating them where they're at, I find it hard to make that case that it's actually going to come to fruition.
Okay, let's go to our next ranked team, number 16 on the list is the Michigan Wolverines. Last year was tough for Michigan, no secret. 7-5 regular season, 8 wins with the bowl. Still got their Ohio State bragging rights, though. Unfortunately, you can only feel so good about it when they then go on to win the College Football Playoff National Championship and talk about how that loss was actually the catapults that got them there and all of that. Can they rebound? I think so. So last year, JVT, they didn't have a quarterback. The offense was brutal. They're basically playing football with one arm tied behind their back, it felt like. Looking at the numbers, ranked 91st in total QBR, 131st last nationally among non-service academy programs in pass yards per game. They ran the ball and punted a lot. Yep. I feel like they should be a lot better. And when we talk about a couple of those key wins that they had, namely Ohio State and the bowl game against Alabama, what's a big reason why they won those games? Their defense that allowed like 13 and 10 points respectively in those games. So if the defense can be good, look at this win total, 8.5. Another team that is juiced to the over at -160. I feel like they should be much improved this year. It's just a matter of not a matter of, but what are your expectations for this young, highly touted quarterback that they bring in Bryce Underwood?
Is he going to be the guy?
That's what it seems like.
Okay.
I mean, Big Ten media days are coming up next week, so we'll see if we can pepper what's his face with good questions on that. But that's what it appears to be from all reports.
That's what I'm going to be curious about too, because initially it seemed that the thought was that Mikey Keene was going to take over here and be the guy. You bring in an older quarterback, pay for him. Are you really going to not allow him to play? That's, at least right off the bat, that's going to be the interesting aspect of this. I just keep seeing
all these reports about like how great this kid is.
Sure, of course. I'm just more curious, because you're right. Like, this is really what this is all about for Michigan. I trust them defensively. I trust where they're at. And even then, last year, they still pulled off a win against Ohio State, as we know, by just running a million times and not really doing anything with it. But I am very curious to see how that dynamic plays out, because some would say that, hey, look, we brought Keene in for a reason. We spent money to bring this kid in for a reason. We're just going to make him the backup quarterback. And I'll tell you this much.
Well, maybe he is the guy. So, let's say you start the season with him,
right,
and we see what that looks like. And if it's not good, then you have this highly touted stud guy behind you. I think that's a great plan of attack too.
Yeah, because that to me was my issue. If you're going to tell me right now it's Mikey Keene, I don't know, man. I wasn't really impressed with him at Fresno last year. You look at the 12 games that he played, he was fine. 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, less than 3,000 yards. He was pretty average in terms of putting the ball in danger. I just thought that going to the Mountain West in a system like that, you were going to be much better, and that wasn't really the case. And now making that leap up to the Big Ten, so maybe it shouldn't be.
Do what SMU did last year. Start Preston Stone for the first game, then pull him week 2, right? You get him against New Mexico. He'll start against Oklahoma. If things start going south, bring in Bryce Underwood.
Yep. So I'm with you. I think it should be Underwood in the fact that I think we know what Mikey Keene is. And if that's the case, it's just still whether it's an unknown. So it's the guy that I think is pretty average, but maybe average is better, right? Maybe Keene is just going to give you more than what it was because it's such a low bar to climb over here. Should also note that for this team, I mean, whether the quarterback's going to play or not, or what that's going to be like, I don't know how you feel about it, because we feel differently about a team like Nebraska. I think the schedule's pretty challenging for them. You've got to play Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC. I think those are all true road games, correct? And that's the first portion of the schedule. You still have to take on Ohio State at the end of the year, as you usually do. This might be one where I think it's still floating around that 8-win mark, and then we'll see what happens with some of these coin flip spots at Michigan State and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm not laying $1.60, I'll say that, for 9 wins for Michigan. I think that's pretty accurately priced, if not maybe a little too high.
Yeah, but I think reasonable for them to be ranked where we have them, 16 in the country, I think is a very fair and good spot for them, because this is still a team and a program that we have good expectations for and should have a lot of talent.
I'll ask you, if let's say whoever it is, Underwood or Keene, they hit national championship contender, do they have everything else and they just need that quarterback?
I think the beauty of the college football playoff is get in and see your matchups.
Right.
But I would say CFP contender, absolutely, if that's the case. Then you go from there.
Yeah. The other part we should note about how bad this offense was, the receivers weren't really that great either. So that's the other part of the coin, the other side of the coin. We can put all the focus on these quarterbacks and whether or not it's their fault that this thing didn't really come to fruition or if it didn't work. A lot of the numbers for these Michigan receivers were pretty average. And you're not just talking about it from a standpoint of yards and receptions. A lot of them, like from a PFF standpoint, Stormy, last year, there was one guy who had a PFF receiving grade of over 71, and that was it. Like, you've got to be better than that. And again, it's Pro Football Focus, but I like it as a one-catch-all metric. That's got to be better. And by the way, that was Colston Leveland last year who had that for him. So if you're going to get better at that, then I think there's only upwards to go, considering how poor this offense was.
So can I interest you in backing Sharon Moore and the Michigan Wolverines at plus 210 to make the college football playoff?
No, I'm out.
No? You can't get there?
No. You're in? Yeah, it's a no for me, Doug.
If it's Bryce Underwood, I've got some good vibes.
Okay.
I do. What can I say? And if you've got such a good defense backing you up, like, that's what I believe in.
I got
most.
burned. I had good vibes with Jackson Arnold, and that didn't really work out.
Do you have good vibes with Jackson Arnold this year?
Yes, this year, yes, again. But last year, it wasn't his fault. I don't think it was entirely his fault last year.
Well, in addition, ladies and gentlemen, to college football season, of course, the NFL is right around the corner. Training camp set to get underway in full coming up on Tuesday. And with that, if you're signing up for any of our football contests, come make the trip out to Vegas. And if you need a proxy, we've got you covered. The world's biggest football contests have the best proxy. WinnerCircleProxy.com/VSIN is how you can get more information about Winner Circle. Winner Circle Proxy Service has helped clients win over $9.3 million over the last 2 seasons in these contests. Trusted by thousands over the last decade. WinnerCircleProxy.com/VSIN. We will be right back diving into what is now a 14-game afternoon and evening slate in Major League Baseball. Boy, does it feel good that we have meaningful games to watch and bet today. Don't go anywhere.
This is Follow the Money on VSIN.
Back here on Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM, channel 158. One game already completed on today's Major League Baseball slate as we officially enter the second half of the season. The Cubs beat the Red Sox 4-1 as a minus 135 favorite. Total stays under that 7.5. He's JVT. I'm Stormy Buonantony. 14 more games coming up today. Nice that on this first day back, we had all 30 teams in action, 15 games, so 14 more upcoming. What was the first one that caught your eye as you went through the card?
All right, well, let's see. Diving right in. We don't really have anything about to start, so we can go wherever we want. Let us go to the Baltimore Orioles, your favorite team. Charlie Morton and Taj Bradley will oppose one another. So I, if you don't remember, learned a lesson right before the All-Star break. We talked about this on the edition of Money Moves, where I had backed Charlie Morton in the first 5. I believe it was against the New York Mets, because Morton, for those who don't know, and I think a vast majority of our audience know at this point, since he has been inserted into the starting lineup, my man has been pretty untouchable. He's been great in putting in the Baltimore Orioles in position to win a lot of these games, and he did it again. His last start against those Mets that I'm referring to, Stormy, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, struck out 4, and yet I lost, because he did not get any run support, and that first 5 wager went to the wayside. He has allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. And again, since becoming a starter in this rotation, you can extend that streak out to just 2 games, which he's given up over 2 earned runs since he's become a starting pitcher. I'm in on what this looks like for Morton. All of his numbers indicate that this is pretty rock solid when you talk about how he's pitched up to this point. So instead of getting burned and asking for run support for the guy who's got a 2.76 ERA over his last 8 starts, why don't you just go under 2.5 earned runs, minus 120? That's what I did.
That's fair. Yeah, full game prices, the Rays and Taj Bradley, minus 126, Baltimore plus 104, run total for the full game, also sitting at 9. Meanwhile, a pitcher I anticipate you not buying in on today is Justin Verlander and the San Francisco Giants as they take on the Blue Jays. Giants plus 118, Blue Jays minus 144, Chris Bassett going for Toronto. I was looking at some of his numbers. ERA on the road for Bassett, 4.12. At home, 2.88 ERA. They are at home today. Verlander, meanwhile, your boy can't catch a break. 0-7, 4.70 ERA. He'll win eventually. I just personally don't think it comes today. What was your handicap tonight?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting because he's kind of been all over the place, right? So he gets, right before the break, a start against Philly where he pitches 6 innings. He gets 4 runs, he only charged with 2 of them, strikes out 7. Kind of looks like old Verlander a little bit. And then, of course, the start before that, he absolutely rocked on the road against the Athletics, but that's Sacramento. So maybe is it Colorado-esque where as a pitcher you kind of draw a line through it? Either way, Verlander hasn't been the guy of old. 4.70 ERA, 4 for 16 fielding independent. Obviously, we know how well these bats have been swinging for the Toronto Blue Jays. And on the flip side, as you mentioned with this pitching matchup here, Toronto, I think is in a really good position to get this done with Bassett on the hill. Bassett overall has been pitching pretty well. And what have we talked about for the whole, this stretch? Remember, I got irritated with that team right before, right at the All-Star break where I was like, Giants are done. Can't do this anymore. They can't hit. Dever stinks. They're not hitting anything whatsoever. Every single pitcher that they face, their floor is raised by the fact that the offense in the lineup have just nothing to provide almost every single time out. Bassett, 4.12 ERA, 3.78 FIP, some buy signs on whether or not he can get it done. And I think against a lesser lineup like this, he potentially could do it. So I think first 5 minus the half run at about a minus 110, something like that, is worth looking at for Bassett.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about a bet I am contemplating. We will have in-pocket plays, by the way, at the end of the hour in the Padres and Nationals. And whether I go full game over 8.5 or if I target maybe an F5 over Dylan Cease and Michael Soroka going head-to-head. Cease, looking at some of his road numbers, 0-6, ERA of 6.27. His ERA overall over this past month ahead of the break, 7.50. Michael Soroka, he gives up a lot of runs too. And if you go through some of the recent scores, not necessarily just what he has done, but because the bullpen is so bad for the Washington Nationals also, he gave up 2 runs to the Cards. It's an 8-1 loss in that final. 11-2 loss to the Red Sox where he was blasted for 7 hits and 9 runs. 8-2 loss to the Angels. 13-7 to the Dodgers. 10-6 to the Rockies where he gave up 2 early home runs. And again, I do not like this Nationals bullpen, so I'm just trying to figure out a way to target runs to be scored because I think they'll be had today.
No, you just bet the game over.
You think just over 8.5?
I mean,
feel good about that?
Because I've been very pro Cease. We've talked about this before. If you look at the season-long numbers, he's got a 4.88 ERA but a 3.69 FIP, and there's signs that maybe he could regress to the mean.
And also last time I bet on Cease, I got crushed. So
right.
Maybe I'm a little sad.
And I was going to bring up against my own point here, despite the fact that season long, and we had this conversation with Adam Burke one of the days he joined us in studio, is gauging the season long numbers that show some regression with the recent form. And if you look at Cease's recent form, his last 5 starts, there are no buy signs in there. His last 5 starts, he's got a 6.51 ERA, a 5.29 FIP. If you go by expected fielding independent, then you're talking about 3.88, so maybe there is something positive there. And even the FIP would tell you there's something positive from 6.51. Either way, it's really below average for Cease. There doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. So, if you think that there's going to be some offense here, seems like you can go that route. As we've talked about, if one of your strategies is just going against Cease, those earned run props are out there, right? Team totals, if you think that you're just targeting one of these guys as opposed to both, or just game.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to do full game over 8.5, and we'll do.
I was just going to say, I think was it Will Hill who was talking to us about those first 7s and betting those things over as well, and kind of avoiding if you think one of the aspects of this matchup. Where is this? I can't even remember.
But because I think that the bullpen is part of my handicap, so the F5 wouldn't make as much sense.
Right, and in the first 7, I had this flip for some reason. I thought this was in San Diego, so that would be the other part of this. But
Okay.
8.
It's nice that we have Major League Baseball on. We'll have more plays a little bit later on. MLB All-Star, meanwhile, because that is in the rear view, we have WNBA All-Star that is coming up this weekend. Tonight, beginning at 8 Eastern on ESPN in Indianapolis. We will be treated to both the Skills Challenge and the 3-point competition today. The actual All-Star game will be tomorrow as Team Caitlin Clark, even though she is not participating in the All-Star festivities, but because it's in Indiana, she'll be around and coaching people up. They're plus 4.5 against Team Nafisa Collier, minus 4.5. The total in the game, 257. The league is trying some new things in terms of format for tomorrow night that you were texting about.
This sounds kind of cool, man.
I think so too.
All right, so for those who don't know, there's going to be 4 rule changes for this year's event. 4-point shot circles, 20-second shot clock, no free throws in the first 38 minutes, and I think the most interesting one, live play substitutions. I believe it's for offense only.
Yeah, it's offense only, and it's not full line changes like you would see in hockey. It's one at a time.
Yep.
But yes, while live play is going on, if you're on offense, you can just do a swap.
Yep. And the foul, if you're wondering, like, what do you mean by no free throws? So if it's a foul, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, they're just awarding the points.
Yeah.
There's no free throws. They're just giving you the points.
Which
again,
includes if you get a shooting foul on a 4-point shot, which I guess there are like little circles that are 6 feet or so back from where the actual 3-point line is.
But here's the thing, and this is why I want to bring this up. So all of these sound great. And as we always talk about, it's like, hey, well, what does that mean? I'm going to bet this game over. Some spots had this total as low as 238. I was seeing. Now the total is 258.5 for the All-Star game. So this has been. We always talk about.
There's still 257 out there.
There you go.
So.
If you still don't think this is high enough, but we talk about. I thought it was a good example. Not only is rules going to be interesting, I cannot wait to see how they execute the hockey line changes going back on offense. But if you're reading this and you're going, I'm in on this over. It's moved about 20 points depending on where you were looking, and you're missing out on a little bit. Just a little.
What I do think is cool though is there is a prop on DraftKings for who will make the first 4-point field goal specifically. Okay. Sabrina Ionescu plus 250 favorite, Paige Beckers plus 350, Collier 4-1, Alicia Gray 5-1. Gray, by the way, made history last year by becoming the first player to win both the 3-point and skills competition the same year. While she's favored to repeat in the skills competition, she's still a plus 320 price, and is the second shot in the 3-point competition plus 360 behind Ionescu, who won in 2023, did not participate last year. Obviously, there's no Caitlin Clark. And we were going to get to this segment a little bit earlier, and we didn't get to. And I was going to recommend Ionescu, even though when Clark was still on the board, she was around plus 290, plus 300. You're still getting plus money on her at like plus 135 earlier this morning. She's minus 105 now. I think she's going to win it, but the number, like, you could have gotten such good plus prices over the last few days, and now it's minus 105, so it kind of sucks.
I'm out on Ionescu.
Really? Why?
There were some really troubling comments.
I'll say if there was a second person I would have interest in, it's Kelsey Plum at 4-1. Thoughts?
There were some really troubling comments the other day. I don't know if you saw these coming out of the All-Star break, but she was asked how tall she thinks the Statue of Liberty was.
Oh, no.
Her first guess was 8 feet.
What? No, that's not a joke?
I watched the video.
That's
her first guess was 8 feet. The interviewer then goes, just a little bit taller. And she goes, oh, like 10? And I'm like, okay.
She's not joking. Well, so Brian just said in our ear it's 300. I was about to ask. I was like,
how is that your
how many 100 feet is it? Yeah.
How is that your first guess? That's one giant
That's
human.
why I think, is she not being funny?
No, she was dead serious.
Does she think that the real Statue of Liberty is an action figure type thing, like a life-size doll?
How is that your
and
first
that's
guess?
not the true?
And how is your follow-up 10 feet?
I don't know. On that note, however, if you are trying to get in the action, edgeboost.bet is how you can sign up for the first bank account built for bettors. Check it out today. Use the promo code FTM for Follow the Money. We'll be right back.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Stormy, Buonantony, and Jonathan Von Tobel with you at Circa Resort and Casino. Going to dive into a little Offensive Player of the Year awards market with the NFL season upon us in short order. Training camps in full are about to be underway soon, and it's a very exciting time. Like, we talk a lot about how much we try to utilize the summer for prep going into the year, and it's fun. It's been fun, at least for me, going through like market by market and finding potential opportunity ahead of the season.
Yes, Offensive Player of the Year provides quite a bit of intrigue as well. Will it be a quarterback? Will it be any one of these skill positions? Generally, it's been just, hey, here, non-quarterback that's also been the best player, but we will never give MVP to. Here's your award. So I'm very curious. And I would say that while he is the rightful favorite, I don't think Saquon Barkley should be that big of a favorite for this award. So.
Okay, so let's get into it, because you're right. Offensive Player of the Year has become like a de facto non-quarterback award. It used to be overlap. Like Mahomes, Cam Newton, Peyton Manning, they would win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. And the league has kind of decided we're going to spread the wealth a little bit here. Since 2019, we've had an even split of wide receiver and running back, 3-3. Most recently, back-to-back running backs, Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago, and then last year, Saquon Barkley. You mentioned Saquon being the short shot, plus 650, maybe a little bit too short. I would absolutely agree if for no other reason than just history alone. Like we've already, we've had conversations, you and I, together about Saquon Barkley as a potential regression candidate, and that's natural when you're coming off a 2,000-yard season, when only 9 players ever have done that. But also the fact that we have not had a repeating Offensive Player of the Year winner since Marshall Faulk had 3 in a row from 1998 to 2001.
Yeah, and just a real quick insight as to why I think because you kind of alluded to it there. There were so many career highs across the board for Saquon Barkley last year where there's just a natural thought that there's going to be some regression, specifically the yards per carry after contact, like all those sort of things, career highs across the board. You would think that's going to come off. So I think you're really looking elsewhere. To me, in this market, one of the first names that stuck out was Bijan Robinson, floating in that 16-1 range. We'll call Penix a half rookie. Obviously, he played some games last year, but in totality, it's his first year as a full starter. They're going to rely on Bijan Robinson, I think, quite a bit. Bijan is a tremendous player, averaging over 5 yards per touch. If he's going to get a larger workload, if you're really going to start to trust him, ran for 1,400 yards last year. He can catch out of the backfield. If he gets out in space, he's insanely dynamic with what he's able to do. I would argue that he can have the same explosiveness as a Saquon Barkley at times as well. I think the guy has everything written in front of him to have a successful year. 1,800 total yards thereabouts a season ago with a bigger load on his shoulders. I mean, You think you could go 2,000 total yards and compete for an Offensive Player of the Year award.
Yeah, well, and this is a rushing attack that in general improved a lot last year, from 22nd in DVOA to 5th. Robinson's individual numbers went, you mentioned where he was at with like 1,450 yards, but from 976 the year prior, the yards per attempt went up. In the 3 games that Michael Penix started at the end of the season, Bijan Robinson averaged 118 yards per game, 5.2 yards per attempt compared to the 4.9 in the regular season, and 6 total touchdowns. Now, to be fair, it was against teams like the Panthers, Commanders, and Giants, and it's admittedly a smaller sample, but for a guy that averaged fewer than 17 carries per game every other game throughout the course of the season, to be averaging 22.3 carries in those 3 games, and the touchdown production, which I think is going to be a big part of him being that red zone threat where he's the guy that's getting those touches in the 20 to 10 yard range. I love this. And at 16-1, this has been bet down because other people are thinking that as well. I think Bijan Robinson is a pretty popular pick in this market, but one that makes a lot of sense for a lot of the reasons we've laid out.
Are we making a mistake in not looking at quarterbacks to win this award? I know that the last time we had the quarterback split was when Todd Gurley won Offensive Player of the Year and Patrick Mahomes won MVP.
Okay, so anybody who has listened to JVT and I over the last couple of weeks knows I am very anti-AI. I think that the robots are going to take over. I don't like that we're letting artificial intelligence inject into our regular day lives as much as we are. I go to Google today because I'm curious about this. I'm curious about quarterbacks, if we should be investing more in quarterbacks in Offensive Player of the Year. And I asked Google, when is the last time that we have seen a quarterback win MVP and a quarterback win Offensive Player of the Year, a different guy, in the same year? And that was the response. How can you trust AI when AI thinks Todd Gurley is a quarterback?
You can't.
Come on. Yep. So don't believe everything you read, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you get an answer to the question?
So, yes, I did my own physical research. I thought, use AI as a tool, Stormy. It can be really... No, it did not make life easier for me. So we haven't seen it happen since 2001. Aaron Rodgers won MVP and Drew Brees was Offensive Player of the Year. That happened to Brees in 2008 as well.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, 2011. Okay, 2011. Yeah. That happened as well in 2008 when Peyton Manning was MVP. Okay. A few other instances prior to that. But lo and behold, big stories that it has been a long time since we have seen it.
Yes, and we bring this up because it seems that the most obvious candidate for that dynamic, somebody wins MVP, but obviously a quarterback's going to win MVP. I don't think there's really many universes which that doesn't happen.
But another one
quarterback wins Offensive Player of the Year, yes. Correct. The most obvious candidate seems to be Joe Burrow. And I guess that does make sense to an extent. I just feel like given the potential of what Burrow and this offense can do, I don't know if there's a reality where they would do it. And I don't think there's a specific mandate like there is now for Comeback Player of the Year, but I think you kind of alluded to it. This does very much seem to be like somebody behind closed doors was like, let's not give this to the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there seems to be not a mandate of sorts, but there is something there. So I'll be curious if that dynamic plays out. But I do wonder if maybe we are making a mistake or if we're just, hey, No, we should focus on some of these skill position guys. I mean, Justin Jefferson, for example, has a very strong narrative case to this award. If he just has his season and he's playing with what is essentially a rookie quarterback and continues to dominate, again, averaging for his career, 94 yards receiving per game, and just churns out another 1,500 to 1,700 yard season with nearly double-digit touchdowns. I mean, that seems like a very obvious candidate at about 17-1 as well.
Also, to just real quickly, because yes, I completely agree with you, but to go back to the quarterback of it all, Joe Burrow is the name that's been tossed around a good bit. And in our NFL betting guide, which is out and available right now, vsin.com/subscribe, $175 early bird special still ongoing, but it will end soon, July 31st. But you get this guide with all of this information and so many different bets on season win totals and awards markets. For Offensive Player of the Year, Matt Brown suggested maybe Joe Burrow as a potential candidate because of how bad the defense is most likely going to be yet again. They didn't make much changes from last year. They have issues with contracts for key players coming into the season. I think Jaden Daniels would match a lot of that similar narrative with the Commanders defense. Yes, they've tried to do a lot of work to improve that, but last year he was put in a lot of situations to come back late in games and all of that. So if he's set plus 750 for MVP, but he's 40-1 for Offensive Player of the Year, he's a dual threat guy, maybe doesn't get like as much of that love. I think that could potentially be like a similar narrative type of a thing.
That's
okay,
really
and
good poll.
More skill player suggestions that you have, maybe?
No, I mean, I think there's a couple of guys that I think you'd be intrigued by, that you can paint the narrative picture, whether or not it applies or whether it comes to fruition. Marvin Harrison Jr. having a very strong comeback season. We'll call it a comeback, whatever. It was somewhat disappointing when you saw it last year. A lot of people, and I think rightfully so, are high on Gannon and the Cardinals. And if you start to see the Cardinals have some success, if the offense continues to grow and develop, I think that's one. I'll give you one that I don't think is going to happen, but should be in strong consideration if he has a strong year. We discussed before Brock Bowers' receiving prop of 1,500 yards. Bowers is 60-1 to an Offensive Player of the Year. That is, I think, something that could totally come to fruition. He was putting up wide receiver numbers last year.
How much did we talk last year about how, like, the last 2 years, if Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud don't exist, Puka Nacua and Brock Bowers are setting historic rookie records, but they're not quarterbacks, so you didn't get the same attention. This is what that market is built for, right? Is that type of player. When's the last time a tight end won?
Let's see. I pulled is it ever? Do you know
Isn't
that?
it never? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were the person that was this.
Or is that just
Googling
rookie?
for
Maybe that's just rookie Offensive Player of the Year. I think that's rookie.
No, tight end has never won.
No, it's never won.
Never
okay.
won. Tight end has never won the award.
Unless you count
Well, I'm looking at the official list right now.
But like Ditka, but it was pre-actual like NFL grading, right? That he won as a tight end?
The AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year started in 1972. So if you go through the list of guys who has won this, it has been all wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. Not a single tight end has won the award.
Yeah, Ditka won in 1961 prior to that count. But so historically never.
Yes.
For our purposes.
Yes, for this right here.
What about
the AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year? You want a 300-1?
Sure.
You know where we're going.
Do I? Where?
Anthony Richardson.
Okay, let me give you a real one.
He's got the skill set.
What about Amon-Ra St. Brown at 30-1? Finished second in the league in receptions last year, third in touchdowns, fifth in yards. He's gotten better year after year. Offense does have a lot of other weapons, so it's kind of like a pick your poison type thing. But do you think he could be a candidate at 30-1?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Jahmyr Gibbs is obviously shorter on the board at plus 950, but he shares the load on the ground too.
I was also curious, like him or like a CeeDee Lamb, who's actually used a little bit on the ground as well, not to the degree of like Deebo Samuel, who was.
They didn't really do that with Amon-Ra last year, though.
Yeah, and so I want like a little bit more like gadget play, some gadget play nonsense in there. But let's see, I'm looking back. Deebo Samuel didn't win Offensive Player of the Year that year, did he?
No.
Wow. I gotta go back and look and see what the year that was. I thought he would.
On that note, we got to take a time out, do some research. Again, remember the NFL betting guide out now, and this year we're adding fantasy to the party as well. In addition to your betting insights, we've got fantasy football insights. vsin.com/subscribe is how you can get it all.
Was on coke if his girlfriend was not.
These games are a burial, a blowout, a human lock. You can bet your children on these games.
so good that whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country.
Oh, man, get the group chats ready. Got winners, right? Well, earlier this week, at least. We went 2-0 earlier. I do have pending still as our in-pocket plays continue here. John Rahm and Xander Schauffele, top 20 parlay I put together at plus 215. Schauffele, 2 under so far through 36 holes, T17. Rahm, T34 at, even par so far for the tournament. So we're in play. We're in play. Long way to go. As far as what we've got going on today, a couple baseball games I like. The Tigers in the F5 against the Rangers today, minus 135. Reese Olson against Patrick Corbin. Corbin, potential for a little negative regression here, giving up at least 2 runs every start this season, but 1. Meanwhile, Olson giving up 2 or less in 6 of his last 8. Tigers also, when you look at the F5 rankings, 3rd best first 5 team in Major League Baseball. And then I like the over in the Nationals and Padres game, as we mentioned earlier. Dylan Cease, ERA on the road, 0-6, 6.27. The month of July has not been good to him, taking on Michael Soroka, who nothing really to write home about either, and has been a part of a lot of blowouts one way or the other. So I think we get runs here. Soroka paired with the Nats bullpen being big bad. I like an over 8.5 there, minus 110. Also, I'm tailing our guy Reed Kuhn and his thoughts on the Holland fight, plus 235 by submission. Got that in show today at Circa. And I'm rolling with Sabrina Ionescu. I told you last segment, a couple seconds ago, plus 130 in the 3-point competition. Although now I have doubts based on what you told me about her not knowing or not even coming close to a guess on how tall the Statue of Liberty is. We have the footage. Here we go.
You play for the Liberty, obviously. Have you ever been to the Statue of Liberty?
Never. Not once.
We're going to quiz you for this last one. How tall do you think it is?
Ooh, 8 feet?
8 feet?
20 feet?
Keep going.
50 feet?
Way tall.
100 feet.
Keep going.
No.
You know.
Why? 250 feet?
You're getting closer.
Okay, can you tell me? Because I sound stupid.
305 feet. The first guess was 8 feet. That's basically a person, like a tall person.
Right. That was dumb. Take that part out.
That was bad.
That's unbelievable. And the eyes popping out of her head like she couldn't believe that.
She's completely
like
shocked.
50 feet? What? But, I thought initially that when she said 8, that she meant like 800, which was like, okay, a little bit of an overshoot there, but
No.
But then she followed it up with 20. It's like, no, Sabrina, come on.
I'm not going to pretend to know what the exact footage of the Statue of Liberty was. Or is, because I know what it is now.
But you know the guess is in hundreds.
My guess would not have been 8 feet. I can promise
Good
you that.
Lord.
That was bad. All right, the pending Tommy Fleetwood, top 10, plus 210, much like you're talking about here. Pretty live. By the way, you're only 2 strokes out of a top 10 berth. I'm only 1. So Fleetwood's live to get inside of this top 10 here. Sepp Straka to win the Open Championship. That one looks a little bit on live support, but our guy Bobby Mack will see if he can catch the insurmountable, the inevitable, and the impossible to hawk down Scotty Scheffler. McIntyre 5-stroke backs of Scheffler, who was 7 under today. Bobby Mack 5 under today, so a good showing there. 3 plays going into the weekend. Charlie Morton under 2.5 earned runs at minus 120. Blue Jays minus the half-run first 5, minus 105. And then Max Holloway to do what he did against the Korean Zombie, win by knockout and send somebody off into retirement sleeping. Plus 350.
All
Knockout
right.
DK and DQ.
In Pocket Plays, as always, presented by G-Bank, First Bet, and VSiN. Our $500 trifecta rolls on. All you need to do to get things started, open up a G-Bank Visa signature card. Your first 90 days from opening up that account, deposit and play through $1,000 at First Bet. That triggers the trifecta. You get $200 in cashback rewards on your G-Bank Visa signature card. First Bet gives you a $100 deposit match, and then VSiN completes the trifecta with a free 6-month VSiN Pro subscriptions. $500 trifecta from G-Bank, First Bet, and VSiN. VSiN.com/GBank for more information. This is a one-time promotion limited to customers opening a new account. Response to the offer will not apply to requests to convert existing accounts. Apply today. Terms and conditions apply. Again, VSiN.com/GBank. Get the trifecta started. And, oh boy, we have a fun update in the NBA gambling conversation world. And I think at the end of the day, all of this comes down to just people are stupid. So please elaborate.
Well, and we still don't have an important connection here, although it seems somewhat obvious. But, in the court of law, you have to prove things. So David Purdom had a great piece that he posted a couple of hours ago. We have an update on what's happening with Terry Rozier. For those who don't remember, Terry Rozier, one of a couple of NBA players who is under federal investigation for some odd patterns in terms of gambling. Well, it turns out that a professional bettor placed 30 wagers in 46 minutes, all involving Terry Rozier in a 2023 NBA game. For those who don't remember, Terry Rozier at the time was with the Charlotte Hornets, not with the Miami Heat, who is currently under contract with. According to Purdom, on the morning of March 23rd, 2023, a bettor at a sportsbook in Biloxi, Mississippi, placed $13,759 in bets, again, 30 of them over 46 minutes, on the unders on Rozier's statistics in a game that night between the Hornets and the Pelicans, according to the documents which ESPN acquired. All 30 bets won after Rozier exited 10 minutes into the game, citing a foot issue. He goes on to note at least 6 sportsbooks in multiple states detected suspicious betting on Rozier props that day, bulk of activity occurring in Louisiana and Mississippi. So, as you alluded to here, if you're going to try this, I don't know why you would be this stupid. It's akin to walking up to a counter and saying, "Give me $10,000 on Alabama baseball. My buddy has a."
If only you guys knew what I know.
Right. Yeah. There we go. That's the quote. To act like $13,000, essentially $14,000, spread over the course of 40 bets would not raise any red flags, is asinine thinking. How you wouldn't get caught. Now, again, I'm reading the story. There is no real connection to Rozier. The only thing we know so far, at least according to this article, is that Rozier went out that day with a foot injury. Now, again, it would seem on the surface that there's some pretty obvious, like, why would the guy do that if he didn't know? But right now, there is no proof. It would seem that Rozier is fully involved in what transpired that day.
Yes, the report adds that the NBA investigated this unusual activity back in 2023, found that no league rules were violated throughout that investigation, but now a couple years later, he is one of 3 players that is under this investigation in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. He has not been charged or accused of anything, which I feel like is always the important delineation there.
So, and here's the thing, and I think
yet, it's like, how do these things happen?
Well, yeah, right. We'll see if Rozier screwed this up, much like Jonathan Porter, who decided to make the decision as well. But I wanted to note, and I think speaking to our audience who is obviously in this space and would agree with it, so I'm probably not reaching anybody that it really matters. Having said that, there's a lot whenever this comes down, which is, see, you got a problem. Legalized sports gambling. This is an issue. No, this is caught because of legalized sports gambling. As Purdom goes on to note in the piece, all of the props were pulled down within an hour. Most prominent sports books halted betting of Rozier props that day. Within the hour of this occurring, this was caught that day.
Yeah.
So this happens because it's regulated. It goes back to everything in the tentacles of what we're talking about with the One Big Beautiful Bill, or with the way that Illinois is deciding to do things with its tax and things like that. The more you make decisions that push betting away from the regulated market, the more danger there is that these things occur in a non-regulated space, on top of losing out on income and all those sort of things. And I always like to note, because we don't talk about it enough, on top of also putting and pushing people who might have gambling problems into an unregulated market where they don't really try to track them either. So, like, this was caught because of that, and that should be remembered.
I actually was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's in town working summer league late last night, and we somehow got down this road of talking about how the reason that we find out so much of this information is because of those relationships that sportsbooks do have with the different sports leagues to notify them of certain things as they arise. And that, especially in this case, and I don't know if this bettor is that, but there are so many people who don't understand betting that have some sort of information or have made a deal with somebody potentially, like this is all allegedly or hypothetically, that don't understand betting, that go and like try to make a big bet on something when those limits aren't there. Right. And that's like, that raises a red flag for sports books. Like, why are you trying? The Jonte Porter one is just such a great example of like, why would all of these people be betting on a no-name player to go under a certain prop all of a sudden?
Yep.
So,
well, and the Jonte Porter thing sparks me because I was actually around the time I was filling in on Follow the Money for a couple of days, whatever it was. But to the point of this being misunderstood by most outside of the bubble, there was an MSNBC piece that they had closed their article out with. because the whole premise was, hey, this boom and this rush of sports betting content and advertising is really why this is happening. And on the end, the bottom graph was Jonte Porter was thrust into a world he wasn't ready for. And it's like, no, Jonte Porter was an adult who decided to try to fix results.
The stuff with athletes really, really bothers me because you're just you know all of the rules. You are told these things in training camp. There is signage everywhere around the facility that is telling you that you cannot do this, and yet you do dumb stuff. Like, it's just, that's on you. And I think in any walk of life, in any occupation, there are bad apples, and that's what we have seen here. Okay, that's a wrap for us. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us all week. Mitch and Pauly will be back on Monday. We will be back on Follow the Money, 12 to 2 Eastern next week. Coming up, VSiN Primetime, Will Hill and Matt Humans joining you after a quick break.